A description of Anthony Schaeffer's protagonist in the film The Wicker Man, and I quote, "Tearing around in dizzying circles trying to solve it, never able to guess the true plot beyond it, although the evidence of it lies all around him," end quote. Charles Hoy Fort said this, "Almost all people of all eras are hypnotics. Their beliefs are induced beliefs. The proper authorities saw to it that the proper belief should be induced, and people believed properly." J.H. Towson, in Clowns, said this, quote, "As the mountebank delivered his harangue, the clown would repeatedly poke his head out from behind the curtain, making fun of everything his master said, parodying his patter and twisting the meaning of his words. The mountebank played the perfect straight man meanwhile. Here he was, trying so hard to hawk his wares, and his assistant was doing everything possible to undermine sales. The merriment was, of course, intentional. While the clown seemingly encouraged the public not to buy the proffered merchandise, the mountebank knew full well that the bystanders would easily be converted into customers as soon as they forgot that they were, in fact, supposed to be buying. Once the audience had been effectively hypnotized, once its judgment and willpower had been weakened, the real sales pitch could begin," end quote. And in the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, Dr. Albert Mackey, 33rd degree, defines hoodwink as, quote, "A symbol of the secrecy, silence, and darkness in which the mysteries of our art should be preserved from the unhallowed gaze of the profane," end quote. In a study, ladies and gentlemen, of mind control and psychological warfare, it is not enough to simply review the latest technology of coercion, the most recent gadgetry and techno-junk littering the hardware and supply depots of governments and so-called cults. You see, far more dangerous than these appliances is the praxis behind them, ages old, the underground current which informs the modern project and this modern era. You see, for life in our modern era is little more than life in an open-air mind control laboratory where a form of human alchemy has emerged to transform the mass of targeted percipients, the lead, targeted merely by virtue of their being urban dwellers plugged into the electronic and digital pageantry of the establishment's system of things, into the perfect human zombie, gold, to those who practice this ancient science that has never meant what any of you ever thought. I've heard so many people ridicule alchemy as being absolutely impossible to transform base elements. But you see, that's not what it was ever about. Not ever. In those days, when the church and kings ruled with an iron hand, and anyone who did anything that was not politically correct or religiously correct were swiftly and most terribly punished. So they disguised their true intent and their true teachings, the esoteric, with a system of exoteric descriptions. That to the profane would mean one thing, and to the initiate or the adept would mean quite another. But that was then. This is now. What sort of creature inhabits the modern domain? Who is the modern man? Well, the puppet masters say he is the smartest, most advanced individual to ever strut the planet, the most relatively liberated being in history. But Louis Ferdinand Céline said it well, quote, "What does the modern public want? It wants to go down on its knees before money and before crap," end quote. You see, the public have been trained to do this by two principal methods: direct speaking, archetypal messages of pure terror, psychic driving, as the CIA's Dr. Ewan Cameron termed it, encoded in massively publicized lone nut mass murders, and the sinister flattery heaped upon them by their masters in the cult of civilization and progress. The acid test of a human being's freedom and will to protect the quality of his life lies in a person's attitude toward his oppressor. What is modern man's attitude toward Wall Street and the bankers and the elite? That body of adepts known as the secret college, that combined are known as the Illuminati or the Order. What is modern man's attitude toward Dan Rather and the ignorance-bestowing media and advertising man, toward Lincoln and Truman, Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Reagan, George Bush, Johnny Carson, Exxon and Monsanto, and William Clinton? Well, as one writer has observed, and I quote, "The most amazing thing about the American people is that they are constantly defending their worst betrayers," end quote. So I ask you again, who then is the modern man? Well, if you've listened to this broadcast long enough, you know my interpretation. He is a mind-bombed patsy, an ignorant, apathetic twit who gets his marching orders from twilight language keywords sprinkled throughout his news and current events. And even as he dances to the tune of the elite managers of human behavior, provoked by buzzwords, he scoffs with great derision at the idea of the existence and operation of a technology of mass mind control emanating from the media and government. And that is most unfortunate. Modern man believes that he is much too smart to believe anything as superstitious as that. But the truth is, modern man, ladies and gentlemen, is the ideal hypnotic subject, puffed up on the idea that he is the crown of creation. He vehemently denies the power of the hypnotist's control over him, even as his head bobs up and down on the string. Anyone who believes what anyone else writes or says without thoroughly researching it and making sure that it is absolutely true is a puppet on a string. And when the puppet master calls the tune, he will dance. What we observe in the population today are the three destructive symptoms of persons whose minds are controlled by alien forces, and I do not mean from Mars. These forces are amnesia, in effect loss of memory. The second is abulia, or loss of will. The third is apathy, loss of interest in events vital to one's own health and survival. Amnesia, abulia, and apathy are nearly universal among us today and gaining a greater foothold with every passing day. A Japanese philosopher, George Osawa, stated that there was only one incurable sickness: arrogance. If a patient does not regard himself as sick, he cannot submit to a cure. That's why I've urged you, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see what is wrong with America today, go into your bathroom and look into the mirror. You will find the problem staring at you. And at that point, when you make that realization, you must admit to yourself, I have been stupid, I am ignorant, I am apathetic, and I must change. And if you do not, nothing will change, nothing will become better. Nothing at all. The arrogant man does not need to see. He already sees almost everything. And what he thinks he has yet to learn, he believes the experts will one day show him. And who are these experts? They are not really doctors of the soul, ladies and gentlemen. They do not have the man's interest at heart. They are, in fact, his worst enemies. His most cunning manipulators who lead him to do their bidding like any slave master since Egypt. Why then does modern man revere them? Well, it's very simply because, ladies and gentlemen, they flatter him. And that's why you don't get any flattery from me, ever. You never have. I call the shots as they are. I tell you the truth, no matter who it hurts or helps, even if it hurts me. And oh, how you hate it. Oh, how you hate to hear the truth. The man who tells the truth is universally disliked by every person. Because every person has an agenda and is hiding behind a fantasy which the truth penetrates like an arrow and leaves him stripped naked before the whole universe. And he does not like that. But yet it must be. For a great man once said, my leader once said, seek ye the truth, and the truth will make you free. Nothing else will. And without the truth, no man or woman is free, can be free, or ever will be free. But the truth hurts. The truth strips all away and stands golden before all men. Yet how many of you trade that gold of the truth for the lead of the fantasy and the lies? How many of you are going backward in the alchemical process? Modern man reveres his puppet masters, his overseers, because they flatter him. This is the very first secret of mass mind control and can be observed as the foundation stone of virtually every single false religion, party, cult, philosophy, system, training, and great organized church. How can modern man free himself when he is told that he is already a demigod? That the problem lies only in finding a pure enough economic or political system worthy of his high-minded brilliance. Oh. If we look closely, we will see, ladies and gentlemen, that this mind control principle is so basic and simple, it is almost stupidly so, to the point that we marvel that anyone would or could be seduced by it. But it's only a matter of attention. as we saw in the parable of the mountebank and the clown. You see, arrogant hypnopatsies have been told by their masters that they are demigods, and demigods are never deceived or distracted. They're too smart. And by their arrogant self-satisfaction, they blind themselves to the simplicity of the device that ensnares them, and that is when the real sales pitch begins.